Hi, welcome to Not Over the Hill Yoga. This is going to be a practice for back pain. The first thing I want to say is not all back pain is the same. My back pain is different from your back pain. So anyone that says this is great for back pain, that's not really useful. But what I want to do today is give you a bunch of ideas, a bunch of tools for dealing with whatever it is that's going on. And hopefully you'll find a few things that help. First, the back. Excuse me. The spine has three basic segments. There's the lumbar spine, which is what we often have our pain in, the low back. There's 5 vertebrae, and L4-5 is the most common place for injuries. That's where sciatica will appear also. Then we have the 12 thoracic vertebrae, which tend not to hurt, but sometimes we have problems like the shoulders hurt or that space right in the middle of the back just gets a little tight. We'll look at that. And then there's the cervical spine, the neck, and there's 7 vertebrae there. So that all comprises the spine. And of course, like any part in our body, the joint above, the joint below, they all are affected. So if you have a problem like maybe a fusion in your spine, it's not uncommon for the joint above or below to have a problem. So having said that, let's find a comfortable seat. So I like to sit in Sukhasana with my legs crossed. If this doesn't work for you, you can lengthen your legs, you can be asymmetrical, whatever makes you comfortable. Knees can sometimes be a problem. But find your balance left and right so that you're equally weighted on each hip. If you have any scoliosis or a problem like that, then you might need to do some adjusting with your blanket so that you're sitting up equally weighted. And then the hips are going to be nice and heavy. Let your shoulders shrug and then unshrug. And we'll just let the hands fall wherever they fall. So this is a modification of a Kundalini yoga warm-up called Sufi grind. And basically, it's like you're drawing a circle on the sky with your head. So there's no flexion extension. It's a straight back, shoulders heavy, and we're just going to circle and pressing your head into the sky. I always like to do this with my eyes shut. So you're reaching up and reaching up and reaching up. So the part of your body that's moving is the space between your hip crease and your lowest ribs. And you're just moving in a circle and feeling that gentle stretch. There's no need to go fast. There's no need to go super slow. Just feel what feels good to you. Keep reaching your head up. And you can do this, sometimes I like to do this for 5 minutes on each side. So your breath is coming in and out very deeply. Don't feel like you have to time one breath, one circle, but just allow your breath to really come in and really go out. When you come to the center, take a brief pause and we'll go in the other direction. And again, I'm using my hands on my ankle to kind of so I can go back. But it really feels good just opening up that low part of the spine. And then how I always finish this is on the second side, we'll start making this circle smaller and smaller and smaller till we find stillness right in the center of our bodies. With that centering, let's reach our arms up high and then reach them back down. So when we're reaching up, we're shrugging the shoulders, getting that whole shoulder girdle to lift and come down. So the shoulder girdle is 3 bones. It's the clavicles, the collarbones, the shoulder blade and back, and the arm bone. And this often will move as a unit. So we're elevating it and depressing it. And that just starts the shoulders moving along the spine, and that'll help to loosen things up. Next time we'll reach up high and keeping all that length. Left hip is going to stay really heavy as the left arm reaches up higher. Right arm to the back, left hand to right leg. Sit up really tall and exhale to twist. If this hurts, of course, you wouldn't do it, but sometimes a little twist, lengthening can help start to loosen things up. So we'll take 3 breaths, lengthening and then twisting. Inhale, we're just going to let our arms ragdoll back to the center. Take a full round of breath, let that work settle. We're going to inhale to reach up again. This time we'll go to the left. Left hand behind, right hand to left leg. Sit up really tall so the right hip stays heavy. You lengthen your whole right spine out of there and then twist over to the left. We'll take 2 more breaths. Lift and lengthen. Exhale, twist. 1 more. We'll slowly come back to the center. All right, let's lengthen the legs. And let's find our way onto our backs. So again, here's the pelvis. Actually, before we lay down, just watch this. So here's an anterior tilt when it comes forward. Here's a posterior tilt when the pelvis goes back. We're going to work on that on our backs now. And I wanted you to see it clearly. So on the back, with the knees bent reasonably close to the hips, exhale, press your navel into your spine. You're lengthening out, flattening out that lumbar curve. As you inhale, let the pelvis rock forward. Now you could slip a hand underneath your spine. Then we'll exhale, press down, inhale, come up. We call this pelvic tilts because it's just the pelvis tilting. And very often, if you have pain in your lumbar spine, this feels delightful, especially when you press down, because this lengthens the space between the discs. And if you have any sciatica, when you open that space, the nerve isn't pinched as much and it feels pretty good. I'll show you a few varieties to do with this now. So taking a blanket, and this is your typical little Mexican blanket, and it's folded, and I'm going to lift my hips and place the blanket underneath my hips. So what this does is with the hips lifted, it's going to lengthen that lumbar spine even more. So now there's a little lift, so it's just really getting more in there. And if this feels good, maybe you'll lift your knees, bring your knees to your chest. So we're getting more and more length in the back there. And there's a bunch of things we can do here. Lifting the legs up might be fun. Bringing the knees to your chest. We can go back and forth like this. Very often, if I've done a class where I've stretched my back a little bit, I'll finish the class by crossing my legs and then taking a foot in each hand and just pulling back a little bit. So I'm stretching my hip and my lumbar spine. And this will decompress any compression I've done, if I've done back bends or something that my body doesn't really love. And then we'll flip the legs. It's always one side that's easier than the other. But with the opposite thigh on top, I'm getting a nice stretch here. And this can be done with the legs long. And you don't have to necessarily grab your ankles. You can take your thighs, you can take your shins. But this decompression can feel really good. Some other options here, the blanket is the lowest. But let's try it with, this is a small block. It's a very narrow block. It gives me a little bit of lift, a little more lift. So this is even more stretch back here. Of course, you can do this with an even bigger block or with a bolster. So lots of ways that we can do that. But that nice little decompression, starting with a pelvic tilt, and then maybe getting a little more with some hip lift. So let's come to tabletop. So tabletop, we have the knees underneath the hips, the wrist creases under the shoulders. If your knees are the least bit uncomfortable with this, blankets. These things are really useful. Here in New Mexico, they're about $10 each. They come right from Mexico. Totally worth having in your yoga prop department. So with our knees under our hips and our wrists under our shoulders, we're going to inhale into a cow pose, and we're going to hang out here. So all I'm doing is letting gravity pull me into a passive back bend, letting my belly drop so the hips are high, the shoulders are high, and the head is typically high, but you can even drop your head here. And just let gravity do its job. Now we're going to have to work. We're going to come into our cat spine, lifting the spine up. So every inhalation, I'm going to send my breath into my spine. It might be in the low back, it might be the mid back, it might be between my shoulders. And take one more breath here. And then we'll start moving through our conventional cat-cow. So we inhale into the cow. The head comes up at the very end, looking out. As we exhale, that same pelvic tilt starts it, but now the whole spine is involved. And then the head comes down and I'm looking inward. And we go back and forth. This is probably one of the most classic, useful things you can do for your spine. Getting every vertebra to articulate on the one before and the one above. And you can do this back and forth absolutely forever. And if ever you find some place that needs a little extra attention, you can stay there and kind of work into it a little bit. Find your little stretch. Which leads us to our next thing that I like to do here. So the same position, but we're going to send the hips to the left, the head to the left, and breathe into the right ribs. So they're opening up like an accordion. We'll inhale to center, exhale, hips to the right, head to the right, opening up the ribs on the left. And then you can go back and forth here, waking up that side body. This is that length that we need for any twists. And just again, just to decompress, to get that space back. Often, you know, if we've hurt our backs, we're compressed, we're crunched in, and just creating a little space, a little distance gives everything in there a little bit of room to move. And you can add here, hula the hips around in a circle. You can make a little twist. Really get this going. So we're going to take hips to heels and find child's pose. Now child's pose is interesting. With the knees together, then your belly will rest on your thighs and you'll get a little more decompression in the back. Sometimes that feels good. Sometimes the knees apart feels better. And then you can go lower down onto the mat. So feel free to explore with where your knees are. And if this hurts your knees, you can place a blanket between your knees. You don't have to go all the way down. But if this works, it's a great pose. So from child's pose, we're going to do a little vinyasa with cat-cow. So arms are out extended. We're going to inhale into a cat spine. Slowly exhale through neutral, finding a cow spine and sending the hips right back to the heels. We'll move through this a few times. And don't even worry about where you cat, where you cow, where you breathe. The whole point here is to add the joint above and the joint below. So not only are let's see, there's 17 vertebrae in the spine when they have the thoracic and the lumbar moving, but now we're adding the hips and the shoulders, which are the joint above and the joint below, and getting just a little more motion here. And then we'll settle into child's pose. And hopefully that feels better already. So I'll show you some other things that are useful. Let's use some other props now. This is a big favorite of mine. Take a block. This is a really nice cork block. But you can do this with a foam block. You can do this with a couple of books. So we're going to lift the hips and place the block right under your pelvis. So it's not under the low back. It's supported by that nice bowl-shaped bone. And then we'll bring the feet up. And you'll know right away if you need to make an adjustment, because there's really about one place that a cork block feels good. We'll bring the legs straight up in the air. Then we're going to let one leg come all the way to the ground and bring the other knee into your chest. Interlace your fingers either in front of your shin or behind your thigh if that's more comfortable. It's important that this leg, the long leg, is on the ground. If you have it lifted, then the psoas muscle, the hip flexors, are going to be working to hold it up. We want them to relax. So let that foot come down. And with fingers interlaced, we're going to gently pull the knee back. So one of the things that people do wrong here is you curl up the front of your chest. We want to keep the chest open. So keep those shoulders reaching back so you can breathe into the front of your body. We're opening up the hip and the heart at the same time. So this, usually you'll feel it on the front of your left, the long leg, so the left thigh, in the hip flexors. You might also feel it in the back of the bent knee, and that's perfectly fine. And if this is okay here, if you have a lot of room, you might want to go up one level. It's totally individual. The whole point is to get a really nice stretch right here and just let that long leg be floppy. And I'll stay here for sometimes 10 breaths or more. We'll go to the other side and bring it down. Let the right leg be long, bring the left in. And again, start here. This is often a lot for your first time, but after you've been doing this for a while, you might find that you want to go up one level. I wouldn't go up to the highest level. That would just be kind of unstable. So gently pulling the leg back. Another reason to do this, to keep the hip flexors nice and open, is when we get older, we tend to see people shorten their strides, taking shorter steps. And when these muscles tighten up, that'll cause that, and then it becomes a self-perpetuating habit. So by getting these hip flexors nice and open, we can take a longer stride and be more secure in our bodies. So I call that the psoas stretch. Psoas is one of the deep, deep hip flexors in our bodies. So that's some stuff for the low back and the hips. I'm going to show you something to do for the upper back. So we take a Mexican blanket, and all the yoga teachers will tell you to roll the fringe side in. I'm not sure why, but that's how I was trained, so it's habit. If you roll the fringe side last, I'm not going to know. You're going to bring the little blanket roll and place it behind your back. And here's what's fun. You want to lay down and then roll onto it so that your shoulders come off it. And it comes right under, I always just say bra strap level. It's right under your mid-thoracic spine. The shoulders come down. If your head is not comfortable, another blanket underneath your head or a block is really good. Arms out to the side or wherever. Sometimes I'll go into cactus arms or reach overhead. Legs can be wherever. You can have them long. You can have the knees bent. You can come into Supta Baddha Konasana with the soles of the feet together and the knees out. You can play with twist. The whole point is to have this part of your body open. This is the thoracic spine, which is, thorax means rib cage. So this is where the ribs are contained, on that part of the spine. Inside the rib cage is the heart and your lungs, two incredibly vital organs. So it's natural for us to protect. We're always curling up to protect those. It's a very natural response. But opening them up can feel really good. We spend so much of our life texting, moving forward, driving, looking at our phones, all that stuff. This is a great way to just open that up, and I recommend spending 5 minutes a day doing this. And again, if you don't have a blanket, there's lots of stuff at home you can do. Here's a bolster, even a bigger bolster. Sometimes it might be too much, but it's a good thing to have. So I highly recommend that. Let's look at the neck a little bit. So this is a little difficult for me because my neck is fused in 3 segments. That's why I kind of sit sideways a little bit. It's one of my surgeons left me a little funny. But I have a lot of injuries in my neck from riding horses and doing all kinds of fun things when I was younger. But still very good to stretch the neck out. So sitting up nice and tall. So we have a neutral pelvis, not too far forward, not too far back. Lifting up here, let the shoulders be heavy. Take a deep breath in and exhale to drop your chin to your chest. Just the neck is moving. Inhale, come up, and keeping that length we have in the back of your neck. Lengthen your front. So instead of crunching down, we're trying to maintain that length as we stretch the throat. Inhale to center. Keep your left shoulder heavy as you let your neck fall to the right. Inhale to center. Keep the right shoulder heavy as you take it to the left. And then what I recommend, and again, this isn't good for my neck, but is to make circles, just going around, back and forth. And in my classes, I'll often ask people to make 5 circles each direction. And take your time here. If you find a bit where you get a little, ooh, there's a stretch, stay there and breathe. Rules are silly. Feel what's going on in your body. This can be a great way to just loosen up your neck. Another thing, again, that I don't do on my neck, but I'll show you, is you'll place your hand over your head and find your ear on that side. So this shoulder stays heavy, and you gently stretch your neck this way. So you'll do each side and hold it for about 3 to 5 breaths. Again, shoulder heavy, ear comes away, and just get that nice lengthening there. It can be super, super helpful. And another thing I'm going to point out, and I'll turn sideways so you can see it. As some of us get older, we do this, we call it turkey neck. And it's a really bad habit, and I have it too. So it's just a gentle tuck of the chin, bring your head back. Because it'll slide forwards and backwards. So you can move forward, and you can come back, and you can see that just looks so much nicer. And that's something to just work on all the time, like up and back. So we're not lifting the chin, opening the throat, but just moving the head back. And that comes right at the top of your cervical vertebrae. It's just the skull moving atlas on axis. It's a very nice, easy thing. I'm going to show you another one that's really, really nice. So if you take your blanket, and we'll open up the blanket so that it supports the entire torso. Makes this pose very nice. And then we'll take 2 blocks. They don't have to be cork, though the cork are very nice. And place them pretty close together. We'll take the bolster and bring this on top. This is a great reason to buy a bolster. And then you'll bring your hips close to the bolster, bring your legs onto the bolster, and lay down. Hips nice if they're really close. So the legs are supported, the hips are relaxing, my lumbar spine is relaxing. And I can just lay here and get a nice stretch. Because just with these knees bent a little, there's a lot of good stretching going on. And you can stay here for 10 minutes or so. Feels really, really good. Another thing that really feels nice on hips and back is legs up the wall. So I'm moving off my mat. You can take a blanket with you and bring your hips really close to the wall, like I'm on the wall. Then come onto your back and swing your legs up. You can put a blanket under your hips if you like, and you can lay here. It just feels really awesome. If you have a sandbag on the feet feels good, or you can let them fall out to a V. Can feel super, super nice on your back. And again, you would stay in legs up the wall for 10, 15 minutes longer if it feels really good. So those are a few things that I do to keep my back happy. I hope there's something in there that works for you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste.